Is your message falling flat on social media? Then you need How to Grow Your Business with Video. Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services. How to grow your business with video. We are here with Rupert Rixon, and he's part of Perspective Pictures. Now, Perspective Pictures was started with the sole purpose of creating the best videos for brands to post to the internet. Now, with media changing drastically over the past 20 years, the industry simply wasn't fit for purpose. Brands need content that will resonate online, is optimized properly for platforms, and often turned around quickly. Perspective Pictures is a full-blown, fully equipped creative studio production company in East London in Mile End, and the team of over 25 remarkably talented people bring branded projects to life. And Perspective Pictures have already created over 5,000 videos in over 50 countries with everyone from startups to globally recognized retailers and icons such as Red Bull, BuzzFeed, Lululemon, Huel, and Adobe. And they specialize in creating digital-first, social-first content for brands, from TikTok videos to Netflix documentaries. And they make cool videos for brands to post on the internet. The first question is, what's the secret to your success?
I think that when it comes to something like filmmaking, you have to have a craft, and you have to get really, really good at that thing. So I think that for me, the most important thing that I did was just get really into filmmaking, try and become, a filmmaker, a director. I've directed kind of various things, and just making the best stuff possible. And then it's like pursuing my passion, pursuing my hobby, something I really loved. If you get really good at something, then the odds are potentially someone will eventually start paying you to do it. So as long as there's a sign of vague requirement for it in society. So yeah, I think just, mastering the craft has sort of been the key thing, really.
Thank you. Everyone wants to succeed online. However, it can be so hard to ensure that your video reaches millions of people or even thousands of people online, whether you're a coach or a brand or a big business. So what are the top secrets to making video work so you can grow your business?
I think seeing video as more of a holistic part of your brand and what you do and how you're approaching things, I think is always a thing. It's much easier to make a video that's going to go viral, when what we're capturing is of real, genuine interest and intrigue. I think that there's this over emphasis increasingly on video, which is great, but people are kind of a little bit blinkered, and they're just thinking about video as a medium and not maybe about what people are going to find interesting. The stuff we do with Red Bull, be it editing a documentary down for about the guy who jumped from space, Felix Baumgartner. We made that, and that did 30 million views, but that did 30 million views because we were capturing a piece of content about a guy who jumped from space. We did a piece of content last year where Red Bull had a pilot land a plane on a helipad. And that did, 1.5 million views organic. So, a lot of the content that we do that performs really well is telling a story that people want to hear about and want to understand. So I suppose you can entertain and wow people, you can educate people and help them. There's various things you can do to add value to people's lives in a way that they're going to engage with. But the most important thing is that you really think about at its fundamental core, what value can I offer? And then how are we going to capture it? How are we going to make it interesting with the editing and everything else?
Thank you. What elements should the script contain so that it becomes engaging, viral, and spreadable?
Sure. So I think it's kind of platform dependent. Different platforms reward different things. So for instance, the YouTube algorithm works as a combination between click-through rate and average retention time on a video. So that's basically, if you have the packaging of the thumbnail, YouTube will show that to 1,000 people. The more, the higher percentage of people that click on the thumbnail, the more people it show the thumbnail to. That's kind of step one. And then step two is the audience retention. So what's the average view rate of the video? If people are watching the first 10 seconds and then clicking off, then YouTube will go, cool, that's a bad video, don't show it to people, because YouTube's trying to optimize to keep people as long as possible on the platform and it's engaged as long as possible. So, the platform we're creating stuff for feeds in massively into the strategy as to like editing and how we create the videos. So for instance, if we're creating something for YouTube, we'll try and not over explain things. First of all, like any kind of context that's required to the audience, we'll try and drip feed it throughout the video rather than get them to do all the learning at the beginning and then show them the good stuff. We'll just try and do things in a relatively quick, relatively concise way and cut out the, sort of trim the fat where possible. And then there'll be other little hacks, like you might mention something that's going to happen later in the video earlier on so that people stick around for it, or you have some kind of you build some conflict that people want resolved or some kind of jeopardy. You might have the ending to the video being cut quite short because, once people feel the video's ending and you do that, okay, thanks so much for watching. If you need this, if you need that, people click away and the retention graph goes from like to just collapsing. So like for us, the videos we make for YouTube, the ending's very abrupt, so that we retain a high average retention. So obviously I think it really depends, platform to platform. Like I say, YouTube, is based on a thumbnail click, whereas like an Instagram Reels or a YouTube Shorts or TikTok is based on a scroll. So you need to do something to stop the scroll, some kind of, thing that might be like, if you're a coach, it might be like bringing up a problem that people might resonate with and putting that at the kind of, at the very forefront of it and being very direct and very clear about the problem you're then going to solve. People are like, oh, cool, I have that problem. And then they stop. And then the second positive thing about that is you're then benchmarking a clear audience for the algorithm, because if you are solving a problem to do with people's marketing, if they run small businesses and they're interested in marketing, they'll already be looking at other content, related to small business owners. They'll already be looking at other stuff related to marketing if that's a pain point for them. So it makes it really easy for for the to go like, oh, cool, this is popular with these people, show it to more of them. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. I noticed, because I watched some of your videos that you have as case studies on your website, perspectivepictures.com. And I noticed in some of them, you put the problem in the beginning. And some of them were quite serious, which didn't appeal so much to me. And there were some that had a humor integrated, or some sarcasm, which again appealed very much to me. So I'm wondering whether there are certain elements that you include, such as always starting with the problem that the potential client may have. And then do you have like a script of certain elements that every single video has to have in order to succeed?
I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, it's not. If there was a sort of like a cookie cutter like strategy there, it'd be kind of, it becomes kind of like copied like a lot, basically. If you have something that's just like a cookie cutter thing, then like other creators will use it and everything else. And there are certainly like things like that. Like there's the Pope and the Pool concept, which is if you're watching somebody talk, if you're watching me pop up on your feed and I'm talking about how you can improve video and I'm just speaking to camera, there's this weird retention thing, which is like if I pop up in your feed and while I do it, I'm eating an ice cream, people watch for longer when people are doing other things while they speak. And we've tested that as well within our ad. But other than that, things like humor levels, like sarcasm, seriousness, narrative structure, like a lot of those things will be based on platform. It will be based on a desired audience. You need to think about what your audience want to watch, what they're currently watching, what's the structure of the content there. And then it'll be based on the message we want to, push across. Like if we're covering a super serious topic, like, I don't know, vaccinations, there's not going to be huge amounts of room for humor. But if you're selling a mail to your home delivery cheese like service, then hey, you can have some fun with it.
Thank you. So a long time ago, I watched this viral video course. And one thing they were talking about was how some of the most successful channels on YouTube, and not just YouTube, have particular patterns that they follow. And I'm wondering whether, you just said that no, there is no cookie kind of approach, but I'm wondering whether, let's say, a particular brand do you recommend they should follow a pattern once they have noticed that a pattern works? So they were giving this example of Vogue interviews where they had the 73 questions. And I watched a few of those as part of the learning of the course. And I did find it so interesting how every single video had I don't know, someone popping from the window and asking a random question that was totally unrelated to anything, and then the was perhaps doing something that they typically do that kind of gives you an insight into what they typically do at home, which normally no regular person get to see, right? So I'm wondering, do you recommend that a brand would have a particular pattern once they have figured out that a particular pattern works for one video? Should they follow that throughout for all of their videos, or no?
I think it depends the extent at which content's being created. Some brands are making a piece of content every day. Some content creators are making one video every 6 weeks and it's getting hundreds of millions of views. So I think that it depends on the frequency, it depends on your objectives. But I think that if you find a good format, I think there's nothing wrong with pursuing it. And as long as you're carefully monitoring that the numbers aren't dropping off, if you're Vogue, I probably wouldn't do every single video, like 73 questions, because the audiences are going to get tired of it. But certainly, if you're putting one of those out a month, one every week or one every 2 weeks, I don't think that's too much of a problem. So yeah, I think you have to be aware of audience fatigue, but I think generally once you find that rhythm and that flow and that sort of format, then I think that's great. And then you can develop other kind of mediums off the back of it. So, if you're operating as a coach, you might have a certain motion graphic style that you have in your videos, and once you kind of look at the retention and the data and you realize, oh, this style works really well, then I think honing in on that. So I think that testing different formats is really, really valuable. And once you start to get into a little bit of a rhythm, then doubling down on the ones that are working, and as they start to dip, if they do start to dip again, then you have to innovate around that.
Thank you. What are the top mistakes brands do when trying to grow their business with video?
I think that they think too much about themselves. I think that there's a reason that brands have, often struggle to make video and have to pay for viewership, whereas content creators don't. Do you know what I mean? So you've got all these individual content creators that have less resources, less money, less expertise. And then you have these massive brands with thousands of people operating in them. Why is it that they've got resources? Why is it that they can't, and authority as well? Why is it that they can't operate in the same way? And I think there's a number of reasons. One is just corporate structures mean that a lot of creative ideas like that get kind of worn down. Another is that people often affiliate themselves with individuals and people, but you still build those within brands. Advocates like, I don't know, Elon Musk and Tesla, do you know what I mean? We know very well what his character is, and we know a lot about him as an individual, whereas I wouldn't necessarily know as much, or don't know at all. I couldn't name you the CEO of Hyundai. But I think that also a lot of it comes from a place of I wouldn't quite say selfishness or a lack of self-awareness, but it comes from a place of brands often push the brand too hard in the video. The amazing thing that Red Bull does is they strike this phenomenal balance with brand integration that offers value and it elevates things and it makes sense. But also it not being too overbearing. If you create a video and it's all about you and why you're so great and there's no value to the audience, there's no entertainment value, there's no education, why would anyone watch that? No one's interested in that. They've got 1,000 other pieces of content that they could watch instead of that thing. So yeah, I think that when you're creating content, particularly as a brand or as sort of someone that's selling something, you need to be very careful as to how you integrate the brand and how heavy it is. And you need to think very carefully about how you're going to offer real value to audiences and how your brand's going to elevate that value. So with Red Bull, they're athletes. They have these phenomenal set of athletes that are capable of incredible things. And a lot of their content is around them and around elevating them and how they aid them. And that means there's a credible brand integration. Whereas even brands sponsoring creators' videos, where you have a 15-second mid-roll in the middle of a YouTube video, you can see the retention drop off massively and then gain again at the end of the advert. People just skip through that. There's no credible integration. Whereas people aren't skipping through Red Bull videos every time a can pops up. It's ingrained into the video.
Thank you. When you were doing your Red Bull video, how did that help their brand to grow their business?
I think for them, they're very focused on just making, they have a really, really good relationship and idea around like just making the best stuff possible, adding value to people's lives, entertaining people, elevating the concept of what's humanly possible, particularly from an athletic point of view. And people build like an affiliation with them. It's like, you don't need people to be like, there are diehard fans, but ultimately all it is that when somebody goes into a shop and they want to have an energy drink and there's a long row of them, they just go, well, yeah, I'll have the Red Bull. Do you mean that's all you're trying to do as like a consumer brand? You're just trying to be slightly more interesting and have slightly more of a reason to choose them than someone else. People that are politically disengaged and not that interested, they might just see something, a clip on Instagram that one leader of one party said, and be like, oh, you know what, I'll go with them. That's fine. That kind of like, it's such a light. It doesn't need to be like there are people that love the brand and are obsessed with it, but that's not what they need at scale. They just need reason for people to choose that over maybe the cheaper option.
Thank you. So why do you think the Red Bull videos work? Is it because they associate really cool athletes that have achieved big things with their brand? Is that the main reason, would you say?
Yeah, they do cool stuff. It's like if I said, oh, do you want to watch a video of a guy jumping from space without a parachute? You'd be like, well, I'll watch a guy free falling from space. He does have a parachute. But if, do you want to watch a video of a guy free falling from space? You'd be like, yeah, I didn't know that was possible. And instantly there's just like a reason. If I was like, oh, there's this drink and let me tell you about it, you'd be like, well, I'm not really interested. But if I'm just like, do you want to see this incredible thing that no one's ever seen before? Hell yeah. All right, cool. And you don't have to be Red Bull to create great content. You don't have to have somebody jump from space to do that. But you just have to think about, like, if I went up to someone and said, oh, do you want to see this thing, or do you want to hear about this thing? And if they were like, yeah, that sounds interesting, then you've got a bit of a winner of a concept. Where if you're like, oh, can I have 10 minutes to try and sell you on something, then people are going to be like, no, thank you. I've got a million other things to do.
Thank you. How can entrepreneurs and brands leverage this specific idea? How can they integrate this idea into what they are doing?
I think it's just that. It's just double downing on always thinking about, am I adding value? Am I creating something interesting? Am I telling people and teaching them about something they haven't heard before? Like, am I sharing a new opinion that people haven't thought about before? Like, it's like, am I genuinely creating curiosity and adding value, or am I just trying to sell something and I've had an article written on ChatGPT and then I've just read it out, or I've told some, story about, I don't know, B2B sales or whatever that isn't really related to anyone's life, just to try and shoehorn in like my consultancy or, whatever it is. Like, I think it's just about, can I add value? Can I offer an opinion people haven't heard before? Can I entertain people? Can I educate them? That kind of thing.
Thank you. How can businesses integrate fun into typically quite boring, like insurance or a bank? I don't know. How can they integrate this fun element or this curiosity element into something that's typically quite boring?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you raised quite an issue we face quite often. Was like, if you've not in fun in your brand as a general thing, then we're going to struggle to make fun video content. And frankly, it would feel slightly weird and jarring if we took like, if we took like a funeral directors and we started being like, that's always been serious. But that's not to say that funeral directors can't be, can't have some kind of like more fun to their be a bit more tongue in cheek. Like there's an I love called Dead Happy, and they're like one of these sort of new age brands where they're trying to make life insurance more interesting, more fun, like, and have some interesting conversations around death and what happens after we die. You have Monzo and other kind of challenger bank brands that have like a much more kind of fun tone and nicer colors and all these sorts of things. So I think honestly, the reality is that for me, I think that embracing fun into your brand is going to be a fantastic way to kind of stand out, particularly in these industries that you mentioned that are a little bit more corporate. And once you do that, then you can start integrating that into your kind of content, your comms, your PR, how you conduct yourselves, your culture in the office, all these sorts of things. But it's a bit strange when people get all the way through building their company and then they get to the bit where they're like, cool, let's do some marketing. And they're like, oh shit, I've built a really boring brand. Like, what do I do about it? Like, it's a bit to then come in and make them a really exciting video. They need to have embraced fun, throughout the building of the company.
Thank you. What are the top mistakes and brands do when creating a video that can grow their brand?
I think one big thing that I've seen a lot of companies, brands, individuals, small business owners do is just not be consistent. Like, the first video you make, particularly if you're doing it in-house, isn't going to be a viral banger. It's highly unlikely. Like, to build any kind of following online, to a voice in terms of video, all these sorts of things, like, you need to be doing this kind of consistently. It's not make one video and boom, your business is going to change. Like, all the creators that we've seen come up, famous, YouTubers, whoever else, like, all of these people have made content for years and studied this for years. So, if you think that the video can be a value for your business, whether you've got budget to hire companies like us to do it for you and to implement that experience, or if you're doing it in-house and you're funeral directors that want to make some tongue-in-cheek content on TikTok, great. But you can't just make one video and then be like, cool, we're done here. You're going to have to do that. Maybe have someone in-house that makes a video or like twice a day for 3 months before you're even remotely going to see any returns or any interest.
Thank you. I noticed on your website that you do all sorts of videos, so brand explainer videos and crowdfunding videos and so on. Give us an example of what elements should a crowdfunding video have? Because I saw one that was pretty good on your website for a company called Cover, which is a good name.
Yeah.
So tell us about how that tends to be more effective than what brands tend to do in terms of crowdfunding, for example.
Yeah, for sure. There's a few things. I think that if you're raising money on a crowdfunding platform, the reality is it's quite unlikely that people are going to watch from all the way from beginning to end. Those videos, people are just kind of trying to get a flavor for the business or what's being sold or whatever. So what we tend to do, particularly with equity crowdfunding videos, is we bubble the narrative. So the first 30 seconds, we're kind of telling the full story from, beginning, middle, and end story. And then if you stay around for longer, then you get more information, and then you get more information. But the most important thing is that if someone watches that video for 25 seconds, they should get a sense of the problem you're solving, what the business is and why you guys, even if it's kind of inferred and not specifically said. So, I think that's a really big thing. And then, with equity for crowdfunding, which is where you're raising investment, you're going to get a broad range of people looking through it, and you've got loads of other supporting documentation, pitch decks, things like that going along with the campaign. So spending too much time on a 8-minute video that explains everything you need to explain is pretty much pointless, because some investors will want to read through the deck. Some investors will go look you up on LinkedIn. Some investors will download or try out the product and see what they think, or some will do all of it. And some will just put 15 quid on every campaign they see on the platform. So the best description I have is that the crowdfunding video needs to be the trailer for the movie, not the full movie. It needs to just be the little teaser to get people excited, get people interested, and kind of spark them to go away and look at all the stuff on the campaign.
Thank you. What are the elements that a great brand explainer video should contain?
I think it just needs to explain what you want to explain in a clear and concise way. If you're trying to get something across to an audience, how to use a product, explaining how your product works, how a piece of technology works, or, any kind of explainer video, the kind of, great if you can entertain people and keep people interested. But the most important thing is that you explain what you're trying to explain in a, in a kind of nice condensed way and clear way. If someone's clicking on an explainer video, you're not really running explainer videos on TikTok unless it's for something else, but to grab attention. Explainer videos are like, you have a captive audience who are readily interested and they probably want to learn more and better understand. You've already kind of piqued their curiosity. So an explainer video should be like, you might have some questions. Let me answer them.
Thank you. So are you saying as well that if the brands haven't already integrated humor into what they're already doing, they cannot just come up with something now and kind of spice up their brand, right? They have to just kind of stick to whatever they've created.
Well, I think you can definitely sort of integrate humor as a first, step and kind of experiment with it. But my recommendation would be to embrace it in all parts of your brand. If you think that humor will be like a kind of welcome addition to just kind of put it in one Instagram reel and expect the world to change. Similarly to how any brand operates, like Huel have a very like monochrome color set. If they started making like super, super colorful videos, if it wasn't, in line with a new product launch or something like that, then it'd be a little bit confusing. It's not kind of, it's not got that consistency, so that continuity. So I think that, I think all brands or a lot of brands could definitely embrace fun and humor into their videos. I think it's a great way to engage audiences. It's one of a number of ways. But I think I would embracing it across the board. But there's nothing wrong with dipping your toe in and trying a little bit of a fun video and see how that goes down.
Thank you. Do you find that when you post in LinkedIn, you would post a completely different type of video for the same brand versus when posting on TikTok, on Instagram and Facebook?
Yeah, definitely to a degree. Like, there's that funny meme of like what my friends think of me, what my, LinkedIn followers think of me, what my coworkers think of me. And it's like, I think that certainly exists. There's differences in those platforms. For us, we tend to focus on, one, the audience aspect. Are you speaking to a different audience? Is there a reason that's a different audience? Is this a more technical audience? Is this a more of a B2B audience, etc.? Secondarily, like, how does the algorithm work? What does the algorithm prioritize? We structure content entirely differently for YouTube, simply because of how their algorithm is. So, for me, I think that, absolutely, we'll kind of create a different piece of content, but I don't think that LinkedIn content needs to be, say, like sterile or overly corporate, like it's the same people just on a different thing. I think that, it's more nuanced than that.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.